So there I was, getting handcuffed in front of my own pool, the chlorine smell mixing with Karen Brightwell's sickeningly sweet perfume, while she smirked like she'd just won the damn lottery. Picture this: perfect Arizona, Saturday morning, 102 degrees, and I'm standing there in swim trunks with metal cutting into my wrists. My 16-year-old daughter, Emma, is crying. 3 patrol cars with sirens still wailing. All because this woman with the platinum bob haircut called the cops on me for using the community pool that I pay $287 a month to access. The body cam footage shows Karen pointing at me like I'm some kind of hardened criminal while neighbors record with their phones, thinking they're watching my public humiliation. What Karen didn't know? I'd been quietly building a federal case against her for 6 months, and in exactly 72 hours, her little power trip would cost her everything, including 15 years in federal prison. But first, what would you do if your HOA tried to ban you from amenities you're paying for? And where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. Let me back up and tell you how this nightmare started. My name's Marcus Delacroix, 52, retired Navy engineer turned solar consultant. After 20 years dealing with military bureaucracy, I thought I'd escaped petty tyrants forever. Boy, was I wrong. 6 months earlier, I'd moved to Sunridge Commons, this planned community in Arizona with 240 homes. Every morning I'd sit on my patio with coffee, breathing in that mix of creosote and chlorine while listening to pool filters humming in the distance. I specifically bought the corner lot for the pool view because after my divorce, I needed somewhere my 16-year-old daughter Emma could visit weekends and feel at home. Our Saturday morning swim tradition meant everything. Father-daughter time before the crowds arrived. The previous HOA board was a bunch of laid-back retirees who basically left everyone alone. Monthly fees were $287. Pool stayed open 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., and life was peaceful. Then Karen Brightwell moved in. 45, real estate agent, drives a pearl white BMW that gleams like it's detailed weekly. She's got this platinum bob haircut, always perfect, and wears pressed white shirts like she's heading to corporate board meetings even at the pool. 2 years later, she ran for HOA president on property values and community standards. Her campaign flyers were loaded with buzzwords like enhanced enforcement protocols. Should have been a red flag, but most residents just wanted someone willing to do the paperwork. Week 1 of Karen's presidency brought immediate changes. New laminated signs appeared poolside, cheap and flimsy, curling in the desert heat. Pool access verification required. Residents now needed ID and utility bills to use the pool. Hours got cut from 6 a.m. 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. 8 p.m. New rule: no guests without board member present. That first Saturday morning, Emma and I arrived at 7:45 a.m. for our usual swim and found the gate locked. At exactly 8 o'clock, Karen appeared with her clipboard, dressed for business inspection. "Mr. Delacroix, pool hours are now 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for community safety." Emma looked confused. We'd been swimming at this time for months. Karen used that condescending tone people reserve for children. "Young lady, community rules apply to everyone. Respect means following guidelines." Her floral perfume lingered in the chlorine-scented air long after she left, and Emma was embarrassed, asking why this woman could just change everything. The following weeks brought increasingly ridiculous restrictions. No pool noodles, safety hazard, no music, noise ordinance, no food except water, contamination risk. Karen photographed residents constantly, taking notes like she was documenting crimes. Most neighbors complied quietly to avoid conflict, but I started hearing whispers. Maria Santos got fined $200 for her kid's sidewalk chalk. Tom Bradley, a veteran, was cited for improper flag display. Mrs. Chen had to remove her bird feeder because it attracted pests. Then Emma's 16th birthday approached. I planned a small pool party, 4 teenage girls, pizza, decorations, and properly submitted the guest request form 2 weeks early. Karen's certified mail response arrived 3 days later. Request denied. Pool parties prohibited under revised community standards section 4.7b. That's when I pulled out the original governing documents for the first time. The thick paper cracked when I opened it, official embossing, the weight of legitimate authority. Here's what I discovered. There was no section 4.7b. Most of Karen's revised standards didn't exist in our actual legal documents. Emma's disappointment cut deep. "Dad, why did you move us here if we can't even use the pool?" That night, staring at those documents, I realized this wasn't about swimming. This was about bullies with clipboards, and I'd spent 20 years in the Navy dealing with petty tyrants. Time to dust off those skills. Emma's birthday weekend arrived, and I made a decision. We were having that pool party anyway. Saturday morning at 10 a.m., 4 teenage girls showed up with towels and excitement, their laughter mixing with splashing water, exactly what a community pool should sound like. I'd armed myself with printed copies of the original governing documents, every relevant clause highlighted and ready for battle. At 10:30 sharp, Karen appeared like clockwork with her clipboard and backup. Douglas Pemfield, a nervous 67-year-old retired accountant who kept checking his phone like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Mr. Delacroix, I told you this gathering was not approved," Karen announced, her voice dripping with that corporate authority she'd perfected. The girls stopped splashing, sensing the tension. I stayed calm. 20 years of military training kicking in. "Show me exactly where in the CC&Rs it says pool parties are prohibited." Karen's eyes flashed. She wasn't used to being challenged. "The board has authority to interpret and enforce community standards." Douglas shifted uncomfortably, sweat beading on his forehead despite the morning shade. "That's interesting," I said, pulling out my documents. "Because according to Section 3.2a, community facilities are available to all residents in good standing." "Which part of that says no birthday parties?" Karen's counterattack came swift and personal. "You're disrupting other residents' peaceful enjoyment." Mrs. Chen called this morning complaining about the noise. Here's where those late-night research sessions paid off. I'd learned that boards can't just make claims without backing them up. Funny thing about Mrs. Chen, I spoke with her yesterday. She's at dialysis every Saturday morning, has been for 6 months. The Johnsons are visiting Tucson, and the Kowalskis specifically told me they loved hearing kids having fun. So which residents exactly? The color drained from Karen's face. Someone had been paying attention, doing homework. Douglas made a nervous throat-clearing sound, shuffling his papers like they might contain an escape route. The pool deck was getting hot enough to feel through flip-flops, high noon Arizona sun making everyone sweat, when Karen escalated to her nuclear option. "If you don't disperse this gathering immediately, I'll call security." I almost laughed out loud. "What security? We don't have security, Karen. The HOA can't afford it since you spent $8,000 on new landscaping without a homeowner vote." "Want to explain that one to the residents?" Douglas actually stepped backward, his clipboard trembling slightly. This wasn't going according to their script. Karen's voice rose an octave. "Fine, I'm calling the police for trespassing." She pulled out her phone with theatrical flair, fingers hovering over the screen. This was my calculated gamble. During my document review, I'd noticed something important. You always have the right to demand specific legal authority for any claim. Go ahead, ask them to explain exactly who's trespassing on community property they're paying fees to maintain. While you're at it, ask them about filing false reports. Emma and her friends were recording everything on their phones, digital natives documenting what they sensed was historic drama. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Karen held the phone for what felt like forever, then slowly lowered it. She hadn't actually called, just another bluff in her arsenal of intimidation tactics. "This behavior will be addressed at the next board meeting," she said, her retreat ultimatum tinged with desperation. "There will be consequences for flagrant violation of community standards." I couldn't resist the parting shot. "Looking forward to it. Will the meeting minutes be available this time, or is transparency another flexible community standard?" Karen's face flushed red as she stomped away, Douglas trailing behind like a confused puppy. After they left, neighbors began emerging from their houses like prairie dogs after a thunderstorm. Mrs. Chen's nephew, who was visiting, whispered that Karen had been taking photos of their property for weeks. Rob Kowalski, a teacher with 2 young kids, revealed his $200 fine for leaving trash cans out 20 minutes past pickup. 20 minutes. Janet Peterson, a nurse who worked night shifts, said Karen had been photographing her rose bushes, claiming they were overgrown despite being perfectly maintained. A pattern emerged through these whispered conversations. Karen's friends got warnings while others got fines. There'd been no treasurer's reports in 6 months. Meeting agendas changed without notice. Resident comments were limited to 2 minutes. This wasn't about rules. This was about systematic control and possibly money. I started wondering about Karen's real estate business angle. That evening, grilling burgers for Emma and her friends, the mesquite smoke mixed with pool chlorine, the smell of a perfect community moment Karen was trying to steal. Monday morning brought her response via certified mail. an official violation notice with a $500 fine for unauthorized pool gathering, giving me 10 days to appeal to Karen's own board. Emma asked the question that crystallized everything. "Dad, are we going to have to move again?" I looked at my daughter, remembering every time we'd backed down from bullies. "Absolutely not. Karen has no idea what she just started." Monday morning, I sat at my kitchen table analyzing Karen's $500 violation notice over coffee, and something immediately felt off. The paper was flimsy, obviously printed on her home inkjet, nothing official about it. The violation cited Section 7.3a, disruption of community peace, but when I cross-referenced it with our actual governing documents, I discovered a problem. Section 7.3 only had subsections through 7.3h, and 7.3a didn't exist anywhere in the legal text. My Navy training had taught me that when facing bureaucratic warfare, you check every detail, and Karen had just made her first major mistake. I immediately submitted a formal written request for all current HOA governing documents, financial statements, board meeting minutes from the past year, and copies of vendor contracts. Arizona law requires HOAs to provide these within 10 business days, and I sent everything via certified mail with detailed records. Karen called that evening, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Mr. Delacroix, your excessive document requests are creating undue burden on volunteer board members." I kept my tone professional. "I'm requesting standard documents any homeowner has the right to review." And then came her slip. "These documents contain sensitive information that could be misused." Translation: she didn't want me seeing what they'd been doing. Tuesday brought an emergency HOA meeting called with exactly 48 hours notice, the minimum legal requirement. The agenda listed one item: discussion of disruptive resident behavior. The meeting location was Karen's living room, which conveniently seated only 12 people for a 240-home community. I arrived with printed copies of state HOA laws and my recording device. Karen's white leather furniture looked sterile and untouchable, like a furniture showroom designed to intimidate rather than welcome. Only board members and 3 residents attended, convenient for Karen's purposes. She opened with character assassination. "Mr. Delacroix has shown flagrant disregard for community harmony." Douglas read a prepared statement about maintaining property values through enforcement, while Beverly Hutchins, the 3rd board member and a retired librarian, stayed silent and avoided eye contact. When I pulled out my recording device, Karen panicked. You can't, this is private property." I calmly explained that Arizona is a one-party consent state for recording meetings, and HOA meetings constitute community business, not private gatherings. I requested a copy of current CC&Rs to verify the violation charges. Karen produced a binder claiming to contain our governing documents, but I immediately noticed discrepancies. Different fonts, inconsistent printing dates, varying paper quality. Key pages were missing. Financial oversight procedures, resident appeal processes, board election requirements. When I questioned these gaps, Karen's explanation was smooth. "We're in process of updating documents for clarity." But I remembered from my research that HOA document amendments require homeowner votes, not board decisions, and any changes made without proper voting procedures are legally invalid. After the meeting, I drove straight to the county recorder's office. The musty smell of old documents mixed with my growing anxiety as I pulled the original CC&Rs filed when our development was established. Comparing them to Karen's version revealed multiple unauthorized changes. The most significant discovery: original documents required a supermajority 67% homeowner vote for any fee increases. Karen's board had raised fees twice without any homeowner input whatsoever. County records revealed something even more disturbing. Sunridge Commons owed $47,000 in back taxes on common areas. Our HOA reserve fund should have contained $180,000 as required by state law, and Karen's financial reports claimed we had $200,000 in reserves. But the tax lien suggested the money wasn't where it should be. Someone had been cooking the books. I called Janet Peterson that evening. "Want to see something interesting?" When I showed her the evidence of financial irregularities, her nursing background kicked in with analytical precision. I wondered why they needed a special assessment for emergency repairs when everything looks fine. Rob Kowalski joined our conversation, revealing that his wife handled bookkeeping for local businesses. These numbers don't add up at all. Wednesday brought Karen's second violation notice: harassment of board members through frivolous document requests, with a $300 fine. The pattern was clear. She was using fake violations to build a case for forced action against me. Thursday morning escalated further when a code enforcement officer visited my property over an anonymous complaint about unpermitted solar installation. The officer looked confused. "Sir, your panels are clearly permitted, and the complaint mentions structures that don't exist." Karen was now filing false reports with government agencies. I began photographing Karen's property daily, discovering her own violations: an unpermitted pool house addition, business signage violations for her real estate signs, and what appeared to be rental income from a mother-in-law suite that wasn't properly declared. But I held back. I was building a comprehensive case, not playing tit-for-tat games. Weekend conversations revealed Karen's systematic targeting throughout the community. Maria Santos was fined for children's chalk art on her own driveway. Tom Bradley got cited for improper flag display, a veteran being told how to display the American flag. The pattern was clear. Karen was targeting younger families, veterans, anyone who might challenge her authority. Emma's observation that weekend hit home. "Dad, you're smiling more than you have since the divorce. Is it weird that I like seeing you fight back?" Friday morning, 3 patrol cars pulled into my driveway with sirens blaring, their radio chatter mixing with neighborhood dogs barking at the sudden commotion. The lead officer approached with professional courtesy but obvious confusion. "Sir, we received reports of suspicious activity, possible drug manufacturing." My shock quickly turned to understanding. "Let me guess, anonymous tip?" Sergeant Lopez nodded, already looking apologetic as his officers searched my solar equipment and workshop tools. "Sir, everything checks out clean. Whoever called this in wasted our time," he said, then added meaningfully, "We're starting to notice a pattern of false reports from this neighborhood." Neighbors gathered with phones recording, and Mrs. Chen approached afterward, voice shaking. "Mr. Delacroix, this has gotten completely out of hand." Janet Peterson was furious. "Karen crossed a line. False police reports could have gotten you hurt." Rob revealed Karen had called code enforcement on him too, claiming he ran illegal daycare because neighborhood kids played in his yard. Karen's response to my document request arrived that afternoon. Documents temporarily unavailable due to office reorganization. But while researching her stall tactics, I'd stumbled across something interesting in state databases. Karen had never filed required annual HOA registration updates with the Corporations Commission. I remembered reading that when HOAs fail to maintain proper registration, they can lose legal authority entirely, and board members lose personal liability protection. Rob and I met with his CPA friend Sarah Mitchell that weekend. Her analysis revealed deeply suspicious patterns. Brightwell Property Services, LLC, was receiving monthly $300 payments for management consulting, Karen billing the HOA she controlled through her own company. Sarah's forensic accounting background immediately flagged this as illegal self-dealing. Meanwhile, Rob's tech investigation uncovered Karen's LinkedIn profile describing herself as specializing in distressed property acquisition and community revitalization, with recent posts about investment opportunities in planned communities. The pieces clicked into place. Karen wasn't just power-hungry, she was systematically destabilizing our community for profit, using her HOA position for insider real estate advantages. Saturday morning, I sat poolside with Emma, deliberately visible, when Karen approached with Douglas and Beverly, radiating false authority. "Mr. Delacroix, your behavior has become detrimental to community welfare," she announced, producing a pre-written document. It was a voluntary sale agreement with Brightwell Property Solutions, Karen's business partner, offering $380,000 for my $465,000 home. The pressure was transparent. Sign today and avoid legal proceedings, with threats of forced sale for violation of community covenants. I examined the document calmly while Emma discreetly recorded everything. "This is interesting. May I see the legal authority for forced sales?" Karen's bluster kicked in. "The board has broad enforcement powers." I pressed for specifics. "Show me exactly which statute allows this." Douglas shifted nervously, clearly knowing they were on thin legal ice. Beverly's uncomfortable silence spoke volumes. Karen's desperation showed as her threats escalated. "Cooperate now or face $1,000 daily fines." She even admitted the financial angle. "We have buyers ready to close quickly." Sunday afternoon, I organized an impromptu barbecue, and 23 residents attended, our largest community gathering ever. Stories poured out revealing Karen's systematic targeting, families facing financial pressure, harassment of questioners, selective enforcement designed to force sales. Maria Santos cried, describing her $400 fine for kids' sidewalk chalk. My husband wanted to sell rather than fight. We almost gave up our dream home over children's chalk. Our resistance corps emerged. Myself, Janet, Rob, Tom Bradley, and Sarah Mitchell. We had evidence of financial irregularities, document fraud, and false police reports, but needed smoking gun proof. Tom's military intelligence background proved invaluable. He'd been monitoring Karen's patterns, discovering regular meetings with property investors and foreclosure specialists. License plate research suggested coordinated efforts to destabilize communities for profit. Monday morning brought the expected escalation. An official notice on my door claiming lien filing for unpaid HOA assessments, $2,300 in alleged debt, threatening foreclosure within 10 days. But Karen had made a crucial error. The lien notice included forged signatures with dates that didn't match my timeline. Beverly Hutchins' signature was obviously traced. She's left-handed, but this showed right-handed penmanship. The ink felt different under my fingers, cheaper pen with different pressure. Karen's desperate timeline had forced the mistake that would destroy her. I photographed everything, documenting the forgery evidence. Emma watched me work with fascination. "Dad, you're like a detective now." That evening, staring at the forged documents, I realized Karen's endgame wasn't just about control. It was about forcing residents out to profit from property turnover. She'd probably done this before in other communities, but this time she'd picked the wrong target. This retired Navy engineer had been building a federal case while she played petty power games. The race was on. Karen clearly planned to escalate before I could expose her, but she didn't know I was already 3 steps ahead. Tomorrow, I'd file the complaints that would bring her entire scheme crashing down. Tuesday morning, I was reviewing property tax records when I stumbled across something that made my coffee mug hit the desk with a sharp clink, the pieces exploding into place like a bomb going off. Sunridge Commons community property wasn't owned by our HOA at all. It was privately held by Desert Vista Holdings, LLC, registered agent Karen Brightwell. She didn't just control our community. She literally owned every square foot of the pool, tennis courts, and common areas we were paying her to maintain. My hands trembled as I called real estate attorney David Chen. If someone owns common areas but collects HOA fees as if the association owns them, what's that called? His response hit like ice water. Theft by deception on a massive scale. She's charging you rent to access amenities while pretending it's legitimate HOA governance. The original developer never transferred ownership to homeowners, a paperwork oversight Karen had discovered and weaponized. The numbers made me physically sick. 240 homes times $287 monthly equals $827,760 annually for 3 years. Karen had stolen over $2.4 million from families who trusted her, collecting fees for maintaining property she'd secretly bought for $12,000 through a tax lien purchase. While we struggled with her arbitrary fines, she was literally robbing us blind. I traced the paper trail with growing horror. Sunset Construction developed our community in 2015, dissolved in 2017 without transferring common areas to the HOA. Karen acquired the abandoned title in 2023, then immediately ran for HOA president. She'd engineered the perfect crime, legal ownership hidden behind fraudulent community governance. That evening, I gathered our core group in my living room, the evidence spread across my coffee table like pieces of a nightmare puzzle. Sarah Mitchell's forensic analysis revealed the triple-dipping scheme. HOA fees flowing to Karen's personal accounts, insurance payouts for maintenance she never performed, plus property appreciation on land she'd stolen. "She's been playing us for fools," Rob whispered, his voice hollow with disbelief. The conspiracy extended beyond simple theft. Douglas Pemfield's CPA license had legitimized Karen's financial manipulations, his signature appearing on documents that funneled community money into private accounts. Beverly Hutchins, terrified into silence, had enabled the fraud through willful blindness. This wasn't incompetence, it was systematic criminal enterprise. Karen's real estate profile revealed her actual business model: target communities with ownership gaps, acquire common property through legal loopholes, then monetize resident access while positioning for massive developer sales. We weren't homeowners to her. We were marks in a long-term con game that she'd probably executed in multiple communities across Arizona. The regulatory violations were staggering. State law requires disclosure of board member financial interests, but Karen had hidden her ownership for 3 years. She'd violated every fiduciary duty while collecting nearly $1 million annually for services she had no obligation to provide. Mail fraud, wire fraud, racketeering, the federal charges would stack like cordwood. Janet Peterson's nursing background kicked in with clinical precision. How many families has she destroyed? How many people moved away thinking they couldn't afford to live here? Maria Santos had almost lost her home to Karen's fake fines. Tom Bradley, a veteran, had been harassed by someone literally stealing his money. Mrs. Chen, on a fixed income, had been terrorized by a millionaire masquerading as a volunteer. Emma found me that night staring at the evidence, the desert air carrying the scent of Palo Verde blossoms through my window, sweet and clean, like hope returning after a long drought. "Dad, she's been stealing from everyone this whole time?" I pulled my daughter close, feeling the weight of responsibility and purpose. "Yes, but not anymore. She picked the wrong community to rob." The countdown accelerated. Karen's lien deadline was 3 days away, but she had no idea I'd discovered her secret. She thought she was pressuring one stubborn homeowner. She had no clue she was about to face federal prosecutors, criminal investigators, and 240 families demanding justice for the biggest HOA fraud in Arizona history. Wednesday evening, my dining room transformed into war headquarters. Photos, documents, and legal citations covering every surface like a detective's murder board. Sarah Mitchell arrived with forensic accounting equipment, Tom Bradley brought military-grade surveillance photos, and Janet Peterson contributed her medical professional's precision. The printer hummed constantly, churning out evidence that would destroy Karen's empire. We organized our ammunition into 3 categories: financial fraud totaling $2.4 million in stolen fees, legal violations including 23 forged documents, and personal attacks ranging from false police reports to elderly intimidation. Attorney David Chen joined via video, his excitement building as we presented the evidence. "You have both criminal and civil cases here. We pursue both simultaneously. Criminal investigations freeze her assets while civil action gets immediate restitution." I remembered reading during my research that the key to defeating bureaucratic corruption is overwhelming documentation paired with media pressure, exactly what we were building. Our evidence packages needed to be so comprehensive that denial became impossible. Rob's journalism background shaped our media strategy. Local angle, consumer protection affecting hundreds of families, national hook, HOA corruption epidemic with criminal mastermind. "We control the narrative before Karen spins this as misunderstanding," he warned, already drafting press releases that would make her famous for all the wrong reasons. Door-to-door mobilization revealed Karen's systematic destruction. 180 homeowners harassed, Spanish-speaking families targeted through fear tactics, veterans disrespected by someone stealing their money, elderly residents terrorized on fixed incomes. Every conversation added evidence, witnesses, and moral clarity about why this fight mattered. Sarah's damage calculations hit like physical blows. Individual families had lost average $9,600 in overpaid fees, money stolen while Karen harassed them with fake fines. Maria Santos nearly lost her home over sidewalk chalk while unknowingly paying a millionaire's mortgage. Tom Bradley, defending our country for 20 years, came home to be robbed by a woman with a clipboard. We divided assignments based on strengths. I coordinated legal strategy and media, drawing on military leadership. Sarah handled forensic accounting. Tom managed surveillance and security. Janet protected elderly residents while documenting health impacts. Rob tackled digital evidence and social media warfare. The regulatory assault required precision strikes across multiple agencies: Arizona Corporation Commission for registration violations, State Attorney General for consumer fraud, County Assessor for property tax fraud, IRS for unreported income. Each complaint was tailored, devastating, and designed to trigger immediate investigation. I instructed residents to pay fees into escrow accounts, effectively cutting off Karen's monthly income stream. Legal notices demanded cessation of collection activities. Restraining order documents were prepared for harassment. Media embargo held until complaints were filed, preventing evidence destruction while building explosive revelation. Security measures reflected our military planning. Encrypted communications, digital evidence backup with legal custody chains, surveillance monitoring for retaliation. The smell of fresh ink from our evidence packets mixed with coffee and determination. We were building an airtight case that would survive any legal challenge. Contingency planning covered every scenario. If Karen fled, asset seizure warrants were ready. If she destroyed evidence, federal obstruction charges would follow. If she retaliated, protective orders and media exposure waited. If she tried selling property, injunctive relief would stop her cold. Personal protection became crucial after false police reports escalated her desperation. Emma's security during weekend visits, neighbor watch networks, legal observers for community meetings. Media attention would provide some shield, but we prepared for Karen's final desperate moves. Our timeline demanded military precision. Thursday, evidence compilation complete. Friday, regulatory complaints filed simultaneously, media interviews scheduled. Saturday, community meeting for public disclosure. Sunday, legal papers served, criminal complaints filed. Monday, class action lawsuit, national media blitz. That evening, the community center buzzed with residents learning the truth. Mrs. Chen wept, discovering her bird feeder fine came from someone stealing her money. Maria Santos realized her children's chalk art citation was cover for massive fraud. Tom Bradley's jaw clenched, learning a fake patriot had robbed genuine veterans. The emotional weight hit everyone differently. Janet Peterson's nurse training kicked in, recognizing trauma symptoms in elderly residents. Rob documented everything, understanding we were creating historical record of community resistance. Sarah's forensic mind marveled at Karen's audacity, stealing millions while fining families for children's toys. Emma found me reviewing final preparations after midnight, evidence packages stacked like ammunition for tomorrow's battle. Dad, what happens if she tries to hurt us? I pulled my daughter close, smelling her familiar shampoo mixed with the desert night air drifting through open windows. She's already hurt us, sweetheart. Tomorrow we make sure she can't hurt anyone else. The weight of 240 families' hopes pressed on my shoulders, but so did the satisfaction of preparation meeting opportunity. Karen had spent 3 years building her criminal empire. We'd spent 3 months building her destruction. The pieces were positioned, the strategy was sound, and justice was finally ready to strike back. Tomorrow would determine whether communities could defend themselves against predators in positions of trust, or whether criminals with clipboards would continue destroying American neighborhoods one HOA at a time. Thursday morning, Karen arrived at my door with a sheriff's deputy, her triumphant smile radiating false confidence as she clutched official papers. Mr. Delacroix, your time for games is over, she announced, the sharp click of her heels on concrete echoing her arrogance. The deputy maintained professional courtesy. Sir, you have legal options to challenge this. But I caught his experienced eyes already questioning the situation. I stayed calm, producing my evidence folder with military precision. Officer, I have serious concerns about document authenticity. These signatures appear to be forged. The deputy's immediate interest shifted everything. Forgery transforms civil disputes into criminal investigations. Karen's panic was instant. Those are legitimate board documents. But her voice carried that razor edge of desperation, like glass about to shatter. I showed the handwriting analysis comparing Beverly Hutchins' real signatures with obvious forgeries. The deputy examined both documents, his trained eye catching every discrepancy I'd documented. Ma'am, I'll need original documents for investigation. Karen's stalling was immediate. Documents are at the HOA office, not immediately available. Translation, she needed time to destroy evidence. Word spread like wildfire. Sheriff's deputy examining Karen's documents while neighbors emerged with phones recording. Mrs. Chen approached with her own suspicious paperwork, and the pattern became undeniable. Multiple residents possessed documents with questionable signatures, impossible dates, violation codes that didn't exist. Karen's house of lies was collapsing in real time. Karen's desperation escalated with whispered claims that I was mentally unstable, alleging harassment and threatening behavior. But Detective Sarah Williams from White Collar Crime had seen this playbook before. My calm documentation versus Karen's frantic deflections painted a clear picture of who was telling the truth. Her evidence preservation order sealed the HOA office immediately. No more document destruction. Channel 12 News arrived after Rob's anonymous tip, and Karen's horror at cameras was delicious. This is private community business, she protested, but consumer protection reporter Jessica Martinez understood the story. When someone steals millions while pretending to serve the community, privacy becomes irrelevant. On-camera interviews revealed the human cost. Maria Santos, tears streaming. I chose between my diabetes medication and her fake fines. Tom Bradley's military bearing couldn't hide his anger. She disrespected every veteran in this community while stealing our money. Janet Peterson documented stress-related health problems. I treated patients with anxiety disorders caused by her harassment. Karen's media disaster unfolded beautifully. Unprepared for real questions, she contradicted herself about property ownership, legal authority, financial management. Her crucial mistake, claiming HOA ownership of property while public records showed her personal title. Reporter follow-ups exposed someone operating completely outside legal boundaries. Detective Williams' search warrants revealed the smoking gun. Separate bank accounts Karen controlled personally. HOA fees flowing to her private investments. Cash withdrawals matching her property purchases. The money trail was clear, devastating, and absolutely criminal. Arizona Corporation Commission triggered immediate investigation, freezing accounts and halting operations. Karen's real estate license faced suspension for ethics violations. Her monthly income dropped from $69,000 to zero overnight as residents stopped paying fees. Property investments leveraged against stolen money began failing as banks distanced themselves from potential fraud liability. Douglas Pemfield cracked under federal subpoena pressure, his CPA license threatening professional destruction. He provided evidence of Karen's systematic manipulations. She threatened to destroy me financially if I didn't sign her documents. Beverly Hutchins finally found courage. I was terrified of her. She said she'd fine me into bankruptcy. Rob's digital forensics revealed Karen's real business model through property investment forums discussing HOA takeover strategies. Email evidence showed coordination with foreclosure specialists during our harassment campaign. This wasn't opportunistic corruption. It was premeditated conspiracy to steal millions from working families. The personal cost mounted rapidly. Karen's husband threatened divorce as neighbors shunned their family. Children faced school gossip about their criminal mother. Real estate clients canceled contracts in droves. Even her signature floral perfume couldn't mask the sharp smell of fear sweat when cameras followed her to the grocery store. That evening's community meeting packed the high school gym with over 200 residents. The energy was electric, years of individual terror transforming into collective power. Mrs. Chen stood at the microphone, voice shaking but determined. She made me feel like a criminal for feeding birds. Now I know she's the real criminal. The applause was thunderous. Maria Santos shared her family's near bankruptcy over sidewalk chalk fines. My children asked why we couldn't afford school supplies while paying this woman to torture us. Tom Bradley's military bearing commanded respect. I defended this country for 20 years. I won't be robbed by a criminal with a clipboard. The solidarity was overwhelming. Families who'd suffered alone for years discovered shared experiences, mutual support, collective strength. We weren't victims anymore. We were an army of citizens demanding justice from someone who'd betrayed the most fundamental trust. Karen's empire was crumbling, but cornered predators are most dangerous. Tomorrow's community vote would either finish her completely or trigger her most desperate moves. Either way, we were ready. The smell of desert rain drifted through gym windows, storms washing away 3 years of lies, making space for truth to finally bloom. Friday night at 11:47 p.m., Tom Bradley's security cameras caught Karen loading boxes into her BMW with a U-Haul trailer attached, moving with frantic desperation under cover of darkness. The infrared footage showed her shredding documents by flashlight, stuffing cash bundles into bags, preparing to flee like the criminal she'd always been. I texted our emergency group. She's running. Detective Williams responded within 20 minutes, coordinating a traffic stop that became local legend. Karen's vehicle search revealed shredded financial records, $47,000 in cash, and a fake Pennsylvania driver's license with her photo but someone else's name. Her arrest for obstruction of justice and evidence tampering made midnight news. Footage of her in handcuffs broadcast statewide while she screamed about illegal persecution. Saturday morning brought media circus. News vans lined our entrance while helicopters circled overhead, their rotor wash stirring desert dust that caught morning light like celebration confetti. Our quiet suburb had become America's HOA corruption epicenter, with hashtag Justice for Sunridge trending nationwide as the ultimate David versus Goliath story. The emergency community meeting required the high school gymnasium. Over 400 attendees packed bleachers while cameras rolled. I addressed the crowd with military bearing. This isn't about revenge against one person. This is about justice for every family she terrorized, and accountability for anyone who weaponizes community trust for personal profit. The thunderous applause lasted 3 minutes. Detective Williams' preliminary findings left the crowd gasping. Total fraud, $3.7 million over 3 years. 67 forged documents discovered. 15 false police reports filed against innocent residents. Evidence suggested Karen was part of a larger criminal network targeting multiple Arizona communities. Our fight had exposed a statewide conspiracy. Douglas Pemfield's public confession electrified the room. Standing at the microphone with tears streaming, he detailed Karen's intimidation. She threatened to destroy my CPA license and bankrupt my family if I didn't sign fraudulent documents. I was a coward, and I'm deeply sorry. His voice cracked as 400 people sat in stunned silence, processing years of systematic betrayal. Beverly Hutchins' testimony revealed Karen's cruelty toward elderly residents. The 72-year-old widow's voice shook. She told me I was too old to understand modern management, that questioning decisions would mean fines I couldn't afford. I signed documents I never read because I was terrified of losing my home. Protective anger rippled through the crowd. This grandmother had been terrorized by a millionaire. FBI agent Rebecca Martinez announced federal RICO charges, continuing criminal enterprise laws designed for organized crime. Karen's scheme crossed state lines, involved systematic money laundering, demonstrated ongoing conspiracy. Potential life sentence under federal guidelines sent shockwaves through the audience as people grasped the true scope of her crimes. The developer connection revelation stunned everyone. Pinnacle Development Corporation had planned purchasing our entire community for $280 million, 40% below market value. Families would have been forced from their homes at massive losses while Karen profited from luxury resort development destroying local desert habitat. Community response was swift and unanimous. Remove the entire board, elect interim leadership prioritizing transparency, pursue maximum criminal penalties with no plea bargains accepted. I was nominated for HOA president with mandate to rebuild democratic governance, though I hadn't wanted the responsibility that felt heavier than military command. National attention brought unexpected celebrity support and documentary offers, but I declined everything. This story belonged to 240 families who'd stood up to systematic corruption, not to any individual hero narrative. The real heroes were Maria Santos choosing medication over fake fines, Tom Bradley defending community after serving country, Mrs. Chen finding courage despite intimidation. Legal proceedings accelerated rapidly. Class action lawsuits sought $12 million, including punitive damages. Criminal charges, 23 felonies, including mail fraud, wire fraud, racketeering, money laundering. Asset forfeiture seized all property purchased with stolen funds for victim compensation. Karen's defense strategy attacked my credibility and mental health, hiring private investigators and launching social media harassment campaigns with fake accounts spreading lies about our motives. But additional criminal charges for witness intimidation backfired spectacularly, solidifying public sympathy while demonstrating her continued threat to community safety. Personal threats escalated security concerns. Anonymous messages warned about accidents for people who interfered with business operations. Police protection was assigned after suspicious individuals photographed Emma's school. The responsibility weight pressed on my shoulders, but community support provided strength I'd never experienced. That evening's evidence compilation represented 3 years of systematic fraud documented in 847 pages with 200-plus exhibits, expert witnesses prepared for trial, handwriting analysts, forensic accountants, psychological evaluators. The mountain of proof would ensure Karen faced full consequences for betraying fundamental community trust. Tomorrow's meeting would reject prosecutors' plea bargain offer, 8 years for guilty pleas. Our community had voted unanimously for full accountability. Partial justice enables future victims, and we refused to let other communities suffer what we'd endured. The desert air that night smelled clean and sharp, like justice finally cutting through years of lies. Emma found me reviewing final preparations. "Dad, you saved everyone." I pulled my daughter close, realizing we'd done more than expose one criminal. We'd proven that ordinary people can defeat systematic corruption when they stand together. Superior Court of Arizona packed with over 200 community members while cameras captured history unfolding. Judge Patricia Rodriguez presiding, her reputation for dismantling white-collar fraud preceded her like thunder. Karen entered an orange jumpsuit, bail revoked after her midnight escape attempt, looking smaller and more desperate than the tyrant who'd terrorized us for years. I approached the witness stand with military precision, ready to deliver testimony that would end her criminal empire forever. The prosecutor's opening visual hit like a sledgehammer. Financial charts showing $3.7 million stolen from 240 families, timeline matching Karen's property purchases to our fee increases, evidence so overwhelming that denial became impossible. The only sound was Karen's pen frantically scratching notes as her house of lies collapsed in real time, her expensive attorney looking increasingly desperate. Community impact statements began the emotional avalanche. Maria Santos, voice steady despite tears. My children asked why we couldn't afford school supplies while paying this woman's fake fines. She stole our security while pretending to protect us. Tom Bradley's military bearing commanded absolute respect. She targeted veterans because she thought we wouldn't fight back. She was dead wrong. Mrs. Chen's quiet dignity devastated the courtroom. At 73, I almost lost my home because she convinced me I owed money that never existed. The smell of courthouse disinfectant mixed with suppressed grief as tissues couldn't keep up with tears. Years of individual suffering finally finding collective voice and public validation. Janet Peterson's medical testimony was clinically devastating. I treated multiple patients with anxiety disorders directly caused by her systematic harassment. She didn't just steal money, she stole people's health and peace of mind. 47 residents testified about choosing between medication and fake fines, college savings depleted by fraudulent charges, families driven to bankruptcy by someone living in luxury off their stolen money. My moment came during cross-examination of Karen's character witnesses. Her defense claimed misunderstanding of authority, but I presented her property investment forum post discussing exploiting HOA loopholes for maximum profit, emails coordinating with developers, calendars proving premeditated harassment campaigns. Looking directly at Karen, I delivered the line that would make headlines. Your Honor, this wasn't about community standards. This was about a predator who weaponized trust to fund her criminal lifestyle while destroying families who believed in her lies. The courtroom held collective breath as I continued. She targeted the elderly because they were vulnerable, veterans because she thought we wouldn't organize, young families because they were struggling. Every violation notice was calculated theft disguised as governance. Karen's face flushed red with rage and humiliation as her true nature was exposed under oath. The bombshell arrived when FBI agent Rebecca Martinez announced federal RICO charges, continuing criminal enterprise spanning 15 Arizona communities with total theft reaching $47 million. Karen wasn't just our local criminal, she was regional coordinator for systematic community destruction. The gasps echoed through packed galleries as people realized the true scope of her conspiracy. Expert testimony sealed her fate. Handwriting analyst proved 67 forged documents. Financial forensic accountant demonstrated money laundering through shell companies. Psychologist explained her predatory targeting of vulnerable populations through calculated psychological warfare designed to break community resistance. Karen's final desperate move involved her business partner Richard Steinberg entering with federal immunity, revealing the developer conspiracy to purchase our entire community 40% below market value. Families would have lost their homes, while Karen profited millions from luxury resort development destroying local desert habitat. The defense's character witnesses, a few remaining supporters claiming mental health issues and family pressure, crumbled under factual assault. Mental health explains behavior, I stated with calm authority. It doesn't excuse systematic theft from 240 families who trusted her with their community's future. Judge Rodriguez's sentencing echoed through absolute silence. This case represents the worst betrayal of public trust I've encountered in 20 years on the bench. Karen's punishment, 15 years federal prison, $4.7 million restitution, lifetime ban from HOA service. Complete asset forfeiture of all property purchased with stolen funds. Douglas Pemfield, 3 years probation, professional license suspension. The courthouse steps erupted in celebration as community members embraced, cried, and cheered together. Desert wind carried the scent of Palo Verde blossoms, sweet and clean like hope blooming after years of drought. I addressed packed media with military bearing. This victory belongs to everyone who refused to be silenced. Today proves ordinary people can defeat systematic corruption when they stand together. Emma's words captured everything. Dad, you didn't just save our community. You showed America that bullies with clipboards can be beaten. The wider impact was immediate. Legislative hearings scheduled, FBI task force expanded nationwide, civil settlements ensuring full victim compensation. Standing on those courthouse steps, breathing air finally free of Karen's corruption, I realized we'd proven something fundamental about democracy. When predators weaponize authority against vulnerable communities, ordinary citizens can fight back and win. Justice might be delayed, but it's never denied when people refuse to surrender to systematic oppression. The sound of children playing drifted from our community in the distance, the most beautiful music in the world. 6 months later, Sunridge Commons community meetings buzzed with productive conversation instead of fearful whispers. Voluntary attendance hitting 85% as democracy replaced dictatorship. Our new HOA structure featured transparent budgets, elected committees, and genuine resident oversight. As president, I'd implemented term limits ensuring no one could ever again accumulate Karen's destructive power. Financial recovery exceeded all expectations. $4.2 million returned to residents, averaging $17,500 per household in refunded fees and damages. Community improvement is funded by recovered stolen assets transformed our neighborhood. New playground where children laughed freely, renovated pool deck where families gathered without fear, expanded trails connecting neighbors previously isolated by terror. HOA fees dropped 40% once we eliminated the embezzlement overhead. Personal healing proved as valuable as financial justice. Emma and I grew closer through shared purpose, our weekend pool parties becoming community traditions requiring no permits from clipboard tyrants. My daughter's state-winning essay, How My Dad Taught Me to Fight Injustice, captured lessons extending far beyond HOA disputes. My relationship with Janet Peterson blossomed naturally, built on mutual respect and community service rather than shared trauma. Karen served 15 years in federal prison, appeals consistently denied as systematic fraud evidence remained overwhelming. Douglas Pemfield completed community service teaching real estate ethics, fitting justice for betraying professional standards. Beverly Hutchins became passionate elderly protection advocate, using her experience to prevent similar scams across Arizona. Marcus's law passed with bipartisan support, mandating HOA transparency, criminal background checks, and accessible document requirements preventing future fraud. My congressional testimony helped shape federal reform legislation adopted by 12 states. The ripple effects would protect millions of homeowners from predators weaponizing community trust for personal profit. Community initiatives flourished using recovered assets. Sunridge Scholars Program provided college scholarships funded by money Karen stole from students' families. Tom Bradley's Veteran Support Network coordinated service projects honoring genuine patriotism. Mrs. Chen's Senior Protection Initiative taught elderly residents fraud recognition. Our Desert Conservation Project converted Karen's seized properties into permanent wildlife habitat, ensuring her criminal legacy became environmental preservation. FBI Operation HOA Hustle exposed 47 affected communities nationwide with 23 arrests. Insurance reforms required stricter HOA oversight. Real estate laws mandated financial transparency for buyers. Law schools taught our case as model community organizing against systematic corruption. My leadership philosophy evolved from military command to power shared as power multiplied. Distributing authority prevents dangerous concentration. Emma's college applications focused on social justice, inspired by witnessing ordinary people create extraordinary change. Fighting for others had healed my divorce wounds while building purpose beyond personal satisfaction. Annual Justice Day celebrations commemorate victory while maintaining vigilance. Strong relationships forged through adversity created permanent community bonds. Financial oversight committees and conflict resolution training ensure transparent governance. The pool deck felt different under our feet, like ground earned through courage rather than inherited through privilege. New board training emphasizes legal requirements and ethical guidelines. Early warning systems recognize corruption before it spreads. Our story inspired similar nationwide victories, with communities using our model to defeat their own predators. Legal clinics provide pro bono fraud assistance, while workshops teach organizing and research skills. Similar victories reported coast to coast proved our methods worked everywhere. A retired teacher in Florida exposed property management embezzlement. Military families in Texas defeated discriminatory enforcement. Elderly residents in California organized against systematic intimidation. Every success validated our core principle. Ordinary people can defeat systematic corruption through persistence and solidarity. The ongoing vigilance continues through resident volunteer monitoring, recorded meetings, and public financial reports. We learned that democracy requires active participation, not passive compliance with authority figures. Transparency prevents corruption, while community engagement ensures accountability from anyone serving public trust. That perfect desert evening, families enjoyed amenities they'd always funded but finally controlled. The air carrying Palo Verde blossom scent, sweet and clean like hope blooming after drought. Emma's wisdom during our sunset swim captured everything. Dad, you proved good people can beat bad people when they work together for what's right. Standing by that community pool, watching children play where Karen once wielded her clipboard like a weapon, I realized we'd accomplished something greater than personal victory. We demonstrated that American communities could defend themselves against predators, that justice delayed wasn't justice denied when citizens refused to surrender. The most beautiful sound was children's laughter echoing across water that belonged to everyone. What HOA nightmare are you facing? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience could help other families fighting similar battles. If this video opened your eyes to HOA fraud tactics, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell for Karen stories. Next week, how a single mom exposed school board corruption that'll absolutely blow your mind. Remember, bullies with clipboards only win when good people stay silent.